Hey, I'm Rob Gant with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I am here today for the third edition of our football talk. I am here with the Towers of Power, the Legion of Boone, Ricky Dennis, who covers the Berkeley Stags for the Berkeley Independent, Roger Lee, who covers the Summerville area teams. It was a great week of football. I'm going to start right here with Roger. I heard one of your teams had a big week this Friday. Talk about that.
Yeah, Fort Dorchester went up to Columbia, beat Dutch Fort, top-ranked team in the state. And they won the game. I wouldn't say easily, but convincingly. DeCarrion Joyner just put on a show. Had 110 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 131 passing yards. The Fort defense held up, and so I think they're in pretty good shape now. There's always going to be a game or two that's going to give a team trouble. You can't, just like Dutch Fort was probably feeling pretty good when they went into that game against Fort. Fort can't go to sleep now, but I think they're in pretty good shape for the season.
Joyner is a Gamecock commitment. I'm assuming that a lot of Gamecock fans who live in the Columbia area flocked to see him on Friday night. He had a big game, as you said. Well, with Fort Dorchester knocking off the #1 team in the state, do you think that stamps Fort Dorchester as the #1 team in 5A? Does that make them the favorite to win it all?
I think absolutely they should be ranked #1 when the polls come out. You beat #2 if it's not like on a fluke, like at the end of the game or something like that. I think if you're #2, you beat #1, that makes you the team to beat. But as I kind of mentioned before, I don't think they're going to coast into the championship game. I think if there's not a team on their regular season schedule that gives them problems, when they hit the playoffs, there are certainly some good teams up in the northern part of the states, and some teams that kind of like Dutch Fort, that's classified as a lower state team, but is in the Columbia area, that are definitely legit this year.
Yeah.
So it's not don't get too excited if you're a Fort fan, but I would say I think now the bullseye's on their back now.
Absolutely, no doubt. Well, you've got some games coming up this week. I guess talk about what you got coming up.
We got Summerville is going to Columbia to play Dutch Fort, and so Dutch Fort ain't going to want to lose 2 games to a Lowcountry team back to back. So Summerville's going to have their hands full. But that game was good. The regular season game that Summerville had with them last year was really tight. Summerville came back in the second half and almost beat Dutch Fort.
That's right, I remember that. Yeah.
And Ricky will talk a little bit about what Summerville did last Friday in Berkeley County. But the thing is, even though they lost to the Stags, if you look at the stat sheet, it's almost even.
Right.
Yards gained, Berkeley had a little 30-yard edge or something like that. Turnovers, first downs, everything was pretty close. So I wasn't there to watch that game, but I think Berkeley just got the job done on the scoreboard, made those few plays that kind of let them get that 2-score lead, and then Summerville did come back and make it closer. But I think once they went up to about 2 scores, it's kind of hard late in the game for anybody to come back against that. But Summerville moved the ball against the Stags. They had some guys step up. Their defense did okay. They could have done better, and they had some starters out. But I think they're going to give Dutch Fort a game this week. I really do.
Let that be a lesson for you folks. It matters on the scoreboard. What else you got?
Most of the teams in the Summerville area have a bye. Cane Bay has a bye.
Right.
Ashley Ridge has a bye, and Fort has a bye. So that's good for Fort. They'll be able to kind of regroup, because I think they had probably, even though they wouldn't admit it necessarily, I think they were looking at that Dutch Fort game since this summer.
Oh yeah.
I think they were looking past Colleton County, even though coaches will tell you they didn't, and they didn't totally. But now I think now that's behind them, and they're going to be a little bit of sigh of relief and looking ahead at, all right, now what do we do about the region, which is starting here pretty soon. But anyway, they have a bye. So Summerville's up in Columbia. The only other Summerville team that's playing is Pinewood Prep, which is also in Columbia. They're at Heathwood Hall. Heathwood Hall is 1-2. I don't know much about them. Their win is over Oakbrook Prep. They got beat pretty handily at First Baptist Friday night, and didn't get on the scoreboard at all. They skunked them. So I'm looking for Pinewood to at least go up to Columbia and have a good effort, because nobody wants to have 2 back-to-back games where you just really don't get anything going offensively.
Translation for what Roger just said. All his teams are gone. This Friday he'll be somewhere watching a reggae, right?
That's possibly.
Okay. Well, speaking of a good time, Ricky, you saw an excellent football game as Roger just talked about. From your perspective, you cover the Berkeley Stags. They won the game 26-23. Talk about what you saw. Talk about what it meant to the Stags, and just and then also talk about what Berkeley has coming up.
Yeah, well, if any game, I think lived up to the hype, this one definitely did. It was the talk in the town all week long. Coaches have been saying, the students were excited about it. They had the stag pound or the dog pound out there in the end zone at Berkeley. So they were very excited about this game, and I think both sides were very much ready to get this going. Obviously, Berkeley having coming out for the win, having beaten Summerville since 2004. It's a monumental win for them. It's a monumental win for Coach Robinson and even for the coaching staff, because a lot of those people, a lot of the coaches with Berkeley had coached at Summerville. And of course, we know that Principal Steele had been back and forth between Berkeley and Summerville as well. So this game really meant a lot to them. And the players were excited about it. And you could see once they sealed the deal with that second touchdown with DJ Chisholm running something like 77 yards. You could really see that they were, talking on the sideline. The guys like, this is a historic night for us. There was some, football greats even for Berkeley who, even though that 2009 state championship team won the state ring, it was still, the loss against Summerville was something that they really weren't able to do. So it was meaningful for them. They were able to overcome that hump. So the guys are revved up about it. A lot of big plays in that game. Like we mentioned, DJ Chisholm ran a 77-yard touchdown as well as an 80-yard touchdown. So the kid was a speed demon. If you didn't know he was fast before, you definitely know he is now.
He had a superhero outfit on.
Something like that.
Yeah, the cape on. Like that.
Yeah, he had number 3, so number 3 for Berkeley definitely is the equivalent to wearing a superhero outfit.
Okay.
But he did his thing. Cam Myers, who was on offense and defense, had a key field goal blocking. Roger mentioned Berkeley getting up those 2 scores. At one point in the game, late in the game, Summerville was up by only Berkeley was up by only 3 points. And Summerville tried to tie that with a field goal, but I think that block by Cam Myers really shifted the momentum because, like Roger said, once you get down 2 scores, it's really hard to get back there. So he had a big game. Wide receivers, Pesno, who's been very consistent with receptions this year, had a big game. We're starting to see Eric Tuttle, we said this last week, is really getting more comfortable with running the ball. He had a few completions as well. But even though you have some turnovers here and there, he's really starting to get in the groove and get more comfortable. And that's I think a confidence booster for Berkeley when you see your quarterback kind of get in the groove of things. So it was a big game. It was a big win. A lot of big plays. One thing to look out for is to really see how they Berkeley kind of doesn't ride this wave too long and gets prepared. So it was a good game on both ends.
Well, as far as motivated teams, now the Stags roll over to Hanahan. Mm-hmm. Hanahan obviously is motivated to come out on top, and they'll give it all they got. I guess talk about what the Stags expect from Hanahan Friday.
Well, if I'm the Stags and if I'm Coach Robinson, I'm expecting Hanahan to really be motivated by Berkeley beating Summerville. Right. Because that. For them, if we can beat Berkeley, then that tells us where we are because they were able to beat Summerville. So Coach Robinson, he praised his guys for a brief while in that post game, gathering after the game. But right after he congratulated them, he told them, look, Hanahan's going to give us the best shot, so we don't need to, when you come to practice Monday, we need to be ready to play them. So we can expect Hanahan to do that. Last year's game, Berkeley was only able to beat them by 1 point.
Right, I was there.
26-25. Yeah. So you wrote in your article as well about Darius Douglas giving them that edge in a late game touchdown. Well, this year they don't have Darius Douglas anymore, so it'll be interesting to see if that game does come down to the wire, who will be the one to step up. Now Berkeley isn't short of playmakers. I mean, if it comes down to the wire, then they have some playmakers who can kind of do some late game heroics. But of course, as a coach, you don't want that's not necessarily the situation that you want. So I think a key thing for Berkeley really would be on the defensive end, being consistent. I know in the Summerville game, One thing that Summerville did well was finding was connecting with their receivers. They had a lot of gains on the passing game, and I know Coach Robinson got a little frustrated with seeing those completions with guys like McCurry and some other guys who made some long receptions. So I think that on defensive end, their DBs would really have to be cognizant of that when they play hand-to-hand this week. Javonte Grant, the good receiver for hand-to-hand, will be somebody that they're going to have to look to contain, because if they get going from that end, that's going to be hard for them to stop this come Friday night. So.
Yeah, hand-to-hand will be coming off a 28-14 loss to Wando. I also went to a game. I also saw a team win a football game on Friday. Northwood doubled up Bethesda Academy 16-8. Huge game by Matt Lewis, the quarterback. He rushed 18 times for 165 yards. He scored in a long touchdown run. He threw a touchdown pass, and he only intercepted 3 passes. So he had an excellent game. Chargers came out on top despite being shorthanded. Coach Philip Keefe was very proud of his team for playing shorthanded and coming through in the clutch.
If for anyone that needs to be aware of it, we were down 6 starters. So that for this group right here to kind of push through and get this is big. So it says a lot about them and guys stepping up as we kind of challenge them as the week next man up. And we had a lot of young guys on the field and injuries, but guys did a great job of fighting through. And we just told them all week we got to keep believing and pushing through.
In other games on Friday, Cane Bay knocked off Stratford 42-13. R.J. Roderick had 4 touchdowns rushing and 100 yards. He had 4 touchdowns rushing, over 100 yards. He's the quarterback for Cane Bay. He became the school's all-time rushing leader with that. He surpassed Anthony Enos. So good job by RJ there. Sumter knocked off Goose Creek 31-0. Timberland defeated Cross 20-6, and Jeff Davis Academy knocked off St. John's Christian 8-6. On my side of the fence this week, Stratford still looking for its first win of the season, hosts Georgetown. Goose Creek is at Greenwood. Berkeley, as we mentioned earlier, is traveling over to Hanahan. Ricky, you'll be there for that one, so follow Ricky on Twitter. Northwood is at Dorchester Academy. They'll try to win for 2 weeks in a row. Be a tough test for the Chargers. Dorchester is usually pretty good. Cross is at Kingstree, and as you mentioned earlier, Cane Bay is off, and another one of my teams is off. Timberland High School is off. Those 2 teams play on September 15th. Little note about that game: if Art Craig could somehow beat the Cobras on September 15th, that would be his 200th career win. That game is going to be in St. Stephen. It'll be should be a barn burner. I'm going to stop a second and talk about one of my games since I'm going to be at it. Stratford hosts Georgetown. The first couple of weeks of the season, Stratford's just been in a little bit of a bind. They've not quite had the talent to keep up with whoever they've been playing against. First week it was Berkeley. Last week it was Cane Bay. This week that talent gap is not so wide. So look for Stratford to play a closer game, maybe have an opportunity to win, because Georgetown is also still looking for its first win of the year. And one other game I want to mention, Goose Creek going over to Greenwood. I mean, similar situation for the Gators. They've been on the field with 2 pretty tough teams the first 2 weeks, and it doesn't get any easier when they have to go to Greenwood. Greenwood's traditionally one of the better teams in the state. So look for Goose Creek to try to clean up some things, and maybe they can play a little better with Greenwood than they did the first 2 weeks. My message to those teams kind of in that situation, if you're still looking for your first win, you've been outmanned your first 2 weeks, my message to those kids is just to just keep playing hard. Don't get so focused on the scoreboard that you forget to do your best on every play, and to play with your heart. And if you do that, you can be satisfied with what happens regardless of what the scoreboard shows after the game.